Hello everyone, xforts here, and welcome back to Chainsaw Man Wednesdays, where today we have episode 2 of the anime and chapter 107 of the manga to review and discuss. And I'll let you guys know right off the bat, I apologize if I seem tired or less enthusiastic than usual this video, because honestly, I feel like shit. I've had a head cold all day, and I think I'm probably getting sick, so I decided to just take some ibuprofen and record this as soon as possible before I'm knocked on my ass. Because I'm still full of energy because of the combined greatness of today's episode and chapter, motivating me to, still talk about it today. So let's just get right into it, starting things off with the new episode titled Arrival in Tokyo. So of course the anime continues to stick to the source material, at least for now, where we're continuing to be introduced to Makima's character and her infatuation almost with Denji, as she gives him pretty much everything he needs: a job, money, clothes, a family, a place to sleep, a place to eat, the toast with all the different kind of jams he would ever wanted. So Denji's life in the beginning of part 1 of Chainsaw Man kind of does like a 0 to 100 really quickly because of Makima, and she gives him so many of these things that he was desiring and so many of the things he never had growing up. And this is sort of the beginning of the dichotomy, I guess you could call it, between Denji and Makima and the relationship between them, and just the beginning of Makima's, girl boss gatekeep gaslight activities that is only just beginning. As well as this is the first example of Denji being guided throughout the story by these external forces, and specifically Makima, which is a reoccurring theme throughout Chainsaw Man Part 1, where Denji is not a proactive protagonist whatsoever, and we'll have a larger discussion about his motivation later on in the chapter when that comes up, and why it's definitely a point of controversy almost, and why some people don't like Denji about this, and it's often misinterpreted, and it's just a protagonist motivation is a really big deal, and there is a lot of thought put into it, and Denji isn't as simple as a lot of people think, but we'll discuss it later on. So continuing on with the chapter is actually where the anime differentiates from the manga in a pretty big change, and it's the removal of one of the first devils Denji fights, which is the Muscle Devil. This scene occurs right before Denji and Makima get their udon noodles, where this character comes up, he's like, oh, you gotta help me, and the point of this scene was really to establish that Denji is a servant to Makima, and he'll do what she says, and he'll do it with a smile on his face, and just sort of establishing that Makima has control over him. And really the scene was just made to implement some dialogue, but in the anime they implement all of the dialogue that resulted from the Muscle Devil interaction without actually having that fight. Mappa, they want to put a lot of time into those transformations and the time Denji is actually doing combat, and like I mentioned, the scene where he transforms and kills the Muscle Devil is literally 2 pages. It's done, and then it just switches back. So if that was in the anime, they either would have had to allocate more time to it and expand it more, and we wouldn't have time for what they expanded on later in the chapter, which was like Aki and power, or they could just cut it out and fill that dialogue into when they're eating the noodles, and it all works better to capture that more cinematic tone where it's going for, where the scene doesn't change its tone, like a coin, literally just flipping it. So we just have this more mellow scene with Denji and Makima and them having that discussion and doing everything they did in the manga, but without that action scene. I know some people might not like it as it's a removal of a devil and like 2 different characters, but in terms of the tone they were going for this scene, I think it works well to not include the Muscle Devil, because again, they would have had to spend more time on Denji's transformation, or it would have been weird if we just had this huge moment where it's like, oh, Chainsaw Man looks so badass against this fight against the zombie devil, and then in this chapter we see him transform for literally 30 seconds, then it's just moved on and he's not fighting throughout the rest of the chapter. So yeah, Mappa definitely didn't want to rush through the scenes or anything, and they just wanted to keep the tone, so I thought it all worked, at least for this scene in particular. I hope they don't go crazy and remove a whole lot of devils later on, especially during I hope they don't look at the manga and be like, this is too fast paced, this is too chaotic, let's slow the whole thing down. I definitely hope they still keep the chaotic nature to the manga. So moving on from there, after we have that whole interaction where again we're reestablishing how Denji literally barks for Makima and is his servant, where we see what Makima is going to do for Denji. She's going to give him a job as a devil hunter, and everything in this chapter was expanded upon. It was expanded upon quite a bit, which I definitely think is another reason why they removed the whole interaction between the Muscle Devil as well, because it would have been quite a bit to animate. When Denji's walking into the Devil Hunter HQ, that whole thing is expanded upon in the manga. It's 3 pages, and it's a full 2 minutes where we're walking into the building. We're seeing other devil hunters going about their day. We're in the elevator, and in the anime they added Makima's office to be on floor 6. I don't know what the significance of that, but I know that was not in the manga. We didn't see what floor her office was on, so I don't know what is the meaning behind floor 6. Maybe just Devil 666, something like that, but that was specifically something they added in the anime, which was interesting. And some more changes in the anime is that when we're in Makima's office, we're being introduced to Aki Hayakawa having his first appearance in the anime besides the opening, so good to see Aki. See a lot of them in this episode. We also see that painting that was behind Denji in the first frame of the opening. I believe it's from the Divine Comedy or something, but it's very reminiscent of the painting that's in Makima's home at the end of the manga, way in the the final chapters. So definitely a bit of foreshadowing, a bit of reference for the manga readers to recognize that. And I don't believe in the manga that painting is in her office. We're just seeing a lot more of the headquarters and just the world expanded upon quite a bit as well. So I really like what Map is doing with that so far. And that brings us to the interactions between Denji and Aki. And I totally forgot how Aki tries to get Denji to quit devil hunting because he sees that he's younger, and a lot of the devil hunters that we meet and a lot of a reoccurring character trait throughout a lot of the characters in Chainsaw Man is that, they don't really value their own life, and they're willing to throw it away for, whether it's revenge, whether it's, for protecting people like that. But a lot of the devil hunters don't value their own life because they're willing to make these contracts with devil to shorten their lifespan and just, they could get a regular job that's not as dangerous as this, but they choose to devil hunt. And I think that's something specifically more with Aki's character that we might explore later on we'll talk about it more as we see more of Aki in the anime. But that's something I always really liked about the tone of the devil hunters is that it's a really depressing environment almost, especially when we get introduced to the other characters like Himeno and them. But other than the meeting between Denji and Aki, I really like how we see Denji thrown into he's thrown into the home, but we see how unresponsible he is and how he has no sense of manners or cleaning up or anything. When he's in the house, he's just an absolute menace. And it's funny seeing the contrast between Denji and Aki, how Aki sort of has to step up and be this parental figure almost to Denji in power. We don't meet Power yet, but that comes on later on in the manga, where Aki really is the dad of the trio, where he has to take care of these two living in his house and cook them meals and clean up after them. So I always love that relationship of the trio. And yeah, just seeing Denji being so annoying and not cleaning up, not changing the toilet paper roll, and Aki just sort of swallowing his frustration because Makima told him to. So I always love that interaction between Denji and Aki, and when they're fighting in the beginning, just a really cool rivalry. And I love Aki. Not much to say about it other than, Mappa expanded upon it. They made it look really well. And now that brings us to the larger discussion I wanted to have about Denji's character in this chapter, which is when him and Aki get summoned to a crime scene where they have to take care of a fiend, and they make quick work of him. Denji just chops his head off with the little devil hunting axe that he's given as a weapon, so he doesn't always have to transform into Chainsaw Man, as he told Aki, who Aki hasn't even seen his transformed state, is that it gets really bloody and it's a big mess, and it's easier just sometimes to use his axe if he doesn't need to transform. So during this scene, it's when there's a lot of sexual imagery around this fiend's room, and then Denji scores some porno mags, and when he's looking at these, he's infatuated by them, of course, because as we know in the last episode, Denji said he really wants to score with a girl before he dies and all of that, and how a lot of people like to label Denji as simply just a horny character, and he does say in this in this part of the episode that the only goal he has right now, or really what he wants to do, is touch some boobs. And a lot of people might not like Denji for that. They might call him immature. They might think it's a stupid motivation. Some people might relate to them. They might be like, oh, he's just like me for real. Or some people might even call the writing of the series immature or stupid like that, being like, how are you going to write a character and that's the only thing he wants to do? But I definitely think this is going to be a point of controversy, and it's definitely going to cause a difference between manga readers and anime viewers, because if you don't know where the story is going and you don't know why Denji wants to touch boobs or his relationship with Makima or anything, yeah, I could see how in episode 2 you could judge him and be like, I don't like this guy. He's just immature, and why is he like this? But you got to remember where Denji was in the last episode. He had absolutely nothing, how traumatic his life was, how he was filled with ultimate despair. And now he has this character, Makima, who comes into his life and gives him everything he was missing. She gives him the love that he never felt from his mother growing up. Not really the love yet, but she shows him attention, and he is desperate for that. Especially when they were eating udon noodles, when Denji was like, so Makima, what's your type? And she's like, my type's the Denji type. You could see how big of an impact that had on him, that a girl is showing him attention, and just how much he's desired that. So now that he has a place to sleep, he has a home, he has a family, he has all of the basic human needs to survive. He has all those things. So now what he's left with is that he wants to touch some boobs, because what he's really saying here is that the only thing left in him is that void of unconditional love that he never felt from a parental figure or really anyone growing up. So now that he has all of his bases covered in terms of food, being able to sleep, he has a job, he has money now, he needs that affection that he never had. And this is specifically why Denji is really obsessed with Makima specifically, because she has more maternal symbolism and she is more of a motherly figure, how she's always providing for Denji and protecting him and showing him love, because for no reason really. So we know that Makima, of course, wants him because he is the Chainsaw Devil. She has these larger plans, and she's kind of she's of course manipulating him. But Denji right now, he's experiencing this sort of fabricated unconditional love. He doesn't really know why Makima like is providing all these things for him. So he just says like, wow, there's someone who cares about me for who I am and is giving me all these great things. And that's why he's obsessed with Makima, because she reminds him of his mother. And it's important to take note of like how he specifically says like he wants to touch some boobs. And when he says that, he literally crawls down into a fetal position. And this is just one of the many uses of symbolism between Denji and Makima, and how he views her as sort of this motherly figure, as some people might think, oh, he's just horny and he wants to have sex with girls, but he wants unconditional love. That's sort of the way his immature mind copes with these feelings that he isn't really able to understand or express within him. And that's why when he meets characters like Power and Rize and all these hot women throughout the series, it's always Makima that he comes back to, because she shows him that unconditional love of a motherly figure. And there's just tons of symbolism throughout the series with umbilical cords and fetal positions, and Makima having being like a motherly figure to him. So I think that's where I'll leave it there for today. But yeah, in case anyone is like quick to judge Denji about why he wants to touch boobs or anything like that, I hope people just give him a chance and they let the story do what it needs to do, because it is a really good motivation, and it's really important to Denji, and it really fits his character, and it all works together, and it's so much more than him just being a horny character. I mean, he's a teenager, he's horny, he likes girls, but it's all rooted in something much more serious and like deeper traumas that he's unable to really cognitively identify within his head. It's more so just this huge void within himself, and it's why he's so obsessed with women. Still in part 2, he's obsessed with women, and he's willing to be burned and betrayed and just do anything for them, because he's still filling that void. But that's where I'll leave it for today. It's unfortunate to see a lot of misinterpretations of Denji's motivation, or people being like, oh yeah, like he's just like me, yeah, let's just like, I just want to have sex with girls or whatever, or girls looking at him and being like, I don't like him because he's just like a stupid horny kid, when it's a little bit more than that for sure, when you look at where he came from, and the position he is in life right now, where he has all these needs fulfilled except the love of a woman. And that's kind of where that's where it's all rooted in. But anyways, continuing on with the episode, guys. So that now leads into the introduction of Power, which was a super fun sequence. Ai Feido's providing probably like the most iconic voice role in the entire anime so far. I mean, she's Ai Feido's. Like, she's gonna kill it in any role she's given, and her being Power is just so perfect, and it's just like, at least for me, being a fan of JoJo and her role as Jolene, and pretty much all of her roles that she's done, it's just really nice hearing her voice, especially through such an iconic character like Power, and it is just freaking awesome. Also, during the sequence where we're introduced to Power, and when she attacks the sea cucumber devil, they didn't cut that one like the muscle devil, but something that was interesting about the sea cucumber devil is that it showcased almost like a color palette swap, like similar to JoJo, where something dramatic happens and the colors change. And I saw people a little bit concerned about the tone Mappa was going for with the Chainsaw Man anime, because in episode 1, it was very dark and gritty and red and gray, and just blood and industrial machinery with the zombie devil. And a big part of Chainsaw Man is how colorful and loud it is, and its colored scans and in its manga volume covers, where everything is so bright and it's very loud colors. It was really cool when the sea cucumber exploded. I don't know if this was just specific to the sea cucumber, but how we had tones of blues and purples all over the screen, and it looked really like a manga cover, similar to all the colorings that Fujimoto does. So I hope they do that more in the anime. I hope when Denji's fighting, I hope they do it like JoJo almost, where there's really no reason for it in the canon of the series, but sometimes red is blood, or sometimes blood is red, sometimes blood is yellow, sometimes blood might be purple. I really hope they do something like that. It would definitely fit the theme of the manga a little bit more, and give it more of that colorful tone that Mappa might not be able to capture as well as the manga did. So of course, Power was wonderful. Love seeing her in the anime, and I think that brings us to about the end of the episode, where we had our second unique ending, which I love the song. The song was really good, but more important than the song was the visuals. In the last episode, I was like, oh, I guess we're not getting unique visuals, because the last episode was just a credit roll. But now, in this episode, we got a unique ending that was like comparable to an ending for like a full core of anime, where it had this really unique craft style of, it looked like craft paper and crayons being used. Like, I would say similar to like Lost in Paradise with Jujutsu Kaisen, but even more like stylized almost. And it was just really impressive that the opening or the ending theme was so dynamic in the colors and the movement and the motion and the style. And it was just for this one episode. It was specifically of Denji's arrival in Tokyo. And there was even a lot of symbolism in the ending of and I'm sorry, guys. Like I said, I'm definitely getting sick. My head is a little like fuzzy tonight. So I apologize if I'm like stepping over my words or whatever. But In the ending as well, I liked how the ending symbolized this change in Denji's life as well, of coming into Tokyo and leaving the countryside where he's all depressed, and he's meeting all of these new characters, and he's in the big city now. So it was really awesome that it was so well animated, and it was just for this one episode. So I think that concludes our episode 2 discussion. Really cool stuff, really interesting seeing the anime only's reaction to Denji's motivation, as well as power and everything. So again, if people don't like Denji, just give him some time, try to understand where his character's coming from, and try to see him from a more, emotional perspective, because he doesn't really know what he's feeling either at this time. But yeah, Map is continuing to knock it out of the park, and anime kicks ass. So all right, guys, let's shift gears over to the manga now, where there's even crazier shit going on in part 2. So chapter 107, picking things up right where we leave off with Yuko in her Justice Devil form versus Yoru. Very exciting chapter this week. We see a bunch of new characters, and just, yeah, a lot happens. Very exciting. So I said at the end of the last chapter that Yuko's devil design kind of looks like it's from Parasite. It's very clearly a reference to the Parasite manga and anime, as we now see in the beginning of this chapter with how fast her blades move and the way she attacks, as well as the setting. Specifically, probably a reference to Shinichi versus Parasite A, which happened really early on. I believe it was the second episode of the anime. Where it's happening in pretty much the same exact location, the hallway of a school, and the glass is broken, and the blades are moving in a really similar fashion. So cool to see that Fujimoto is most likely referencing Parasite here. If the anime is not on his watch list, he's a mangaka. He probably read it growing up or something, because I don't know, it's a little bit too obvious here to not be like, screaming, hey, like Parasite reference. So pretty cool, Fujimoto. And also just in the first few pages of this chapter, we see all the devastation and damage Yuko is causing on her school, attacking classmates, also fighting against Yoru, and just the way that this is portrayed with the panicking of the class and just the reaction to everything. Fujimoto is definitely providing some sort of commentary, or at least some self-awareness towards the normalization of school attacks taking place, especially in America. I can't say the word because I'll probably get demonetized, but you guys know what I'm talking about. It's very obvious in the chapter title, which is called School Attacker. So I think you know where Fujimoto is going here. Let's just say it would be called something different if Yuko had a gun. So interesting to see that Fujimoto is portraying this within the manga. So obviously the chapter title sounds way similar to something that we hear a lot in the news here in America, and just the way that we see the classrooms are equipped and the way that the people react. Like, one student pushes a panic button in case of such emergencies, and another student mentions like, oh, is this just one of those drills? So Fujimoto definitely drawing similarities to real world events and things people actually have to live through, and bringing light to some of the dark realities that many students fear all across the world almost every single day, using the concept of devil attacks as a sort of metaphor for many of the real evils that do exist. And it's pretty wild that Fujimoto decided to write something like this, and something so intense this early in the part, because as we know, part 2 of Chainsaw Man was going to be school themed. That was one of the first things Fujimoto told us, which is like, we now take place in like an academic environment. Denji's going to school, and what everyone kind of expected by that is like, oh, okay, so we had a really intense battle manga in part 1. Now we're getting more slice of life-ish. Maybe we'll have more relationship focus, maybe more love interest arcs, or just something a little bit more lighthearted. Because what else would we expect when we're mainly focused in a school environment? We're at school most of the time, and nearly all of the characters are students. And so far, in just 10 chapters, we're only 10 chapters into this, and we've already gone into some pretty real and serious topics that are all sort of associated with school life, like social anxiety and bullying and rejection and school attackers. So while Chainsaw Man is a lot of fun to read, it is becoming more clear that Fujimoto is using this theme of school and the social environment as a major theme in the part in exploring a lot of the feelings and darknesses that can manifest in such a setting. So really, again, I always talk about how Fujimoto flips the script and he writes things that aren't expected. And it's just like, God, knowing that we were going to a school environment and Denji would now be going to school, who would have thought that it would have been even darker and depressing and more serious than everything that happened in part 1? It's just, again, only 10 chapters in, we already have a school attack going on now, and all of the things Asa's been going through and like her attempts at self-harm. It's just like, I don't know if she ever attempted self-harm, but her thoughts of it and all those serious conversations she's had with herself. So maybe Fujimoto is showing us here that like school is where the real problems are. It's like, yeah, the real, because in part 1, it's like Denji has a job and he's working a dangerous job, but now it's like, okay, but the serious problems are with young people and at school. So again, Fujimoto's always been an author that younger people can really relate to. So it's interesting for him to take this concept of a school environment and twist it in the darkest way possible, and being like, look at how like fucked up everything can be when you have these younger people thrown into these social environments, and how it can like, just twist people's perspectives and make people feel like shit. And it's just like, God, like if if you're kind of reading part 2 for the fun, if you really take a step back and you look at what Fujimoto is doing with this theme of school, it's pretty dark, especially in this chapter. So with that heavy discussion out of the way, back into the actual chapter, as we see Yuko becoming just more and more unhinged as she's able to read people's minds and quickly identify what students were the ones that were bullying Asa, and without any hesitation just starts killing students brutally. When Yoro is so funny, dude. Yoro has like this little pencil bag and she's turning pencils into weapons, because we know that Yoro is the war devil, can turn anything she owns, which is kind of like a vague statement or like a vague definition. Anything she owns she can turn into a weapon. So it was really funny seeing her, like, she has like a pencil, she's like, oh, a pencil spear, throws it over, and then Yuko just catches it, kills a student with it, bashes another student's head against the wall, and it's like, oh, this is happening right now. Yuko really did that. So honestly, unexpectedly, Yoro is kind of getting worked right now in this encounter. You know, I thought the war devil would be able to like actually easily take out the justice devil, or Yuko, who just became like contracted with this devil, but it turns out this ability to be able to read people's mind and predicts movements is kind of working similar to the way I thought it would. Like, oh, I throw a spear, I know you're going to throw it, I'll catch it. But like, Yoro is really limited in what she can do right now. It's mentioned later on in the chapter that apparently within the few days Asa's been going to school with Yoro, she's been like placing pencils in every single classroom, or rulers, or random tools, and like picking up floorboards and saying like, I own this now, and then putting it back. So, you know, sort of putting her material possessions, her belongings all over the school, as well as, you know, claiming that she owns other things throughout the school in case of anything like this, so she would be able to like always be able to attack in any situation, which is kind of funny. But as predicted at the end of Aaron last chapter, I said like, okay, so where do we go from here if Yuko's really going to go to school? Well, we saw that she showed up and transformed. So it's like, okay, there's a devil in the school now. This is a big problem. I said, of course, you know, what people are waiting for is Denji to show up. That's what Yoro's waiting for, you know, cause this fiasco. So now Denji will have to show up. And I thought it would be interesting if we got introduced to new characters in this way through the Devil Hunting Club, because we know that, you know, devil hunters go to school there. There's the whole freaking club. There's a lot of people. In the first chapter, we saw like at the meeting, there was a bunch of people. So thankfully, we do see this, you know, this trio show up, who are probably a trio similar to how Hitafume, Yuko, and Asa were in the first chapter. We see another trio from the Devil Hunter Club show up, and these are some cool looking characters. So you have the first guy who uses like brass knuckles, there's another guy who uses a bow, and then there's this chick who uses... Guys, this chick, she is going to be a main character. She is going to come back 100%, you know, guaranteed. So the Devil Hunters show up. They all get worked pretty easily. The one guy with the crossbow does die. He gets impaled through his torso and just clearly dead. The other guy, he got his right eye taken out. And we all know characters get when their right eye gets removed, they always get the right eye patch. You know, Denji, Kaneki. It's just a staple in anime where you get the right eye patch. So he'll probably come back because he did survive. But then the character that was using the katana, she gets thrown out of the window, and the last thing we see from her, she says like, like she lets out a groan, so we know that she's still alive. And that reminded me a lot of how Fujimoto, like if he wants to keep a character alive, he'll sort of remove them from the dangerous situation. He did this in part 1 with Hitafume, he was a character that he planned to save for part 2. So during the International Assassins arc, he like coincidentally had him fall out of the department store building, so he didn't get sent to hell, and was a whole part of that. So that kind of reminds me of that, how Fujimoto was like, hey, you know, this character could be cool, come back later, you know, hit her outside and she'll be safe for now, because then we see a panel where everyone is lying on the ground, so they are probably dead. But interesting enough, I think the Seigo character, I probably already forgot his name, but I think he'll come back, as well as the chick with the hoodie. She was really cool looking, and we also didn't see her face. She was like purposely a bit anonymous. So, you know, maybe it's someone, maybe it's Kobeni, maybe it's someone returning from part 1, probably not. But just based on her clothes that she was wearing and her hair, she looked like a really cool character, and we'll probably see more of her, because I couldn't see the situation ending. Of course, Yuko is going to die at the end of this, or, you know, escape some way, and then we're probably going to help these devil hunters, being like, are you guys okay? And then we might make friends that way, and the cast will continue to grow. So really cool. I wish it was even more, honestly. It sucks that one guy with the crossbow just died so easily, but it is nice seeing the cast build up, because one thing in part 2 is that there's not a lot of characters in part 2 so far, and I think the cast really does need to expand a little bit more, like it did in part 1, when we were introduced to a lot of the devil hunters. So really good to see that finally happening, seeing more characters introduced, so we're not just talking about Asa every single chapter. Although I love Asa, but we need more supporting characters around her for sure. So after the Devil Hunting Club shows up and gets absolutely wrecked and just one shot by Yuko immediately, it's really interesting to see how powerless Yoro really is in some of these situations, because Yuko's read her mind and is like, okay, well, Yuko knows where all of her weapons are, she knows everything she has planned, she can't throw any more pencils or pens at her, and I guess that's really all Yoro can do, is just turn school supplies into weapons. So what Yoro decides to do is to leave it to Asa. And we get this sort of Pretty cool cliffhanger where we see that Yuko is reading Asa's mind and understands what they have planned, but it's not revealed to the readers yet. But we know that Yoru had some sort of plan and is now leaving it to Asa, as it says, the leave it all to Asa plan. And what I think this is going to be, it could be pretty simple. It could be something more complex, but I really think this could end with just Asa walking up to Yuko and stabbing her and killing her. Because, if Yoru's in a situation where it's like, God damn, this person's giving me trouble, I can't really do anything against it, and Yuko is more likely to hurt Yoru because she doesn't really look like Asa. She has the scars and is clearly a different person. But if Yoru lets go of control and lets Asa have the body back, Asa might be able to talk to Yuko, or Asa will now probably realize and have no sympathy left for Yuko and being like, wow, Yuko is actually like a messed up, horrible person. And honestly, I could see this being like, what's the Asa plan? Asa just slowly walks towards her and Yuko's like, no, Asa, please don't do it, and just kills her. Or another thing that could happen is that Yuko might read Asa's mind and be like, wait, actually, I'm being Asa's bully right now. I'm being one of the people that I thought was so horrible, and then Yuko just kills herself or something. Because for whatever reason, Yuko just unconditionally is obsessed with Asa and is just throwing her life away for her to protect her because she's apparently such a good person. And those are kind of the two ways I think it. I hope it ends with her turning her into a weapon too. If Asa has any sort of sympathy left for Yuko, being like, I don't like what you've become, but I did care about you at one point. If this is resolved with her being turned into a weapon, that could be really cool and sort of give Asa these power-ups as she continues on throughout the story and gain weapons in her arsenal. Because right now, apparently, Yoru is pretty weak. So Yuko could make a pretty cool first weapon. And yeah, maybe Asa will be like a Ben 10 type character where throughout the story we're turning characters into weapons and they just become part of our arsenal that she can access later on, and this just might be the first part of that and the first big weapon she gets that has a unique ability or something like that. Maybe something specific to the Justice Devil. Pretty dope. I don't think we get a chapter next week. I could be wrong. I'm not really sure. I think we're on a 2-week break now, but I really love where part 2 is going. I really hope those Devil Hunters come back and they're reoccurring characters. We need a bigger cast in part 2. We need it. I can't just do Hitofumi, Denji, and Asa anymore in Yoru. We need more. So now would be perfect time. Like, if we think about where the cast was in Chainsaw Man in chapter 10, like literally like 15 characters, I think, because we had the whole Devil Hunter association. Now we're just like all these students. We don't really know anyone in the school. So yeah, really good chapter. I liked it more than the last one. I liked it more than the episode. I genuinely feel like I'm going to throw up right now, so I'm glad I did this review and got it all out of the way. I probably didn't sound as coherent as I usually do. I literally have like a headache and everything. But anyways, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys enjoyed your Chainsaw Man this week, and I'll see you guys the next week or 2 weeks from now, whenever we get the next chapter. So thank you guys so much for watching. Like the video if you enjoyed. Subscribe for more. I love you all. I'll talk to you all real soon. Peace.